We are in a new episode of the Geopolitical Pickle. Today we'll have with us His Excellency the Ambassador of the Saharaui Arab Democratic Republic in South Africa, Mohamed Yeslem Beisat. And thank you very much, Your Excellency, for being here.
You're welcome.
I just want to start off with going through the history of Western Sahara, perhaps from Spanish occupation or Spanish colonization through the process of decolonization, then the conflicts with Mauritania and Morocco, and how that developed into the current day situation of Western Sahara.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be with you. I appreciate your interest in the matter. Well, before the Spanish colonization, Morocco never actually went beyond Marrakesh. Not even what is known today as southern Morocco was part of the then Morocco. For example, Tantana and Gulmin and never been part of the Kingdom of Morocco, if even we relied on the official Moroccan maps that they were given to the European powers who were doing the colonization there. Then came the Spanish colonization, which was an agreement between the Sahrawi leaders and I don't know if it is Carlos III or Carlos V, one of the kings in the agreement of Canarias. Then, of course, in the 50s, in the 60s, there were liberation movement in all the world, of which Sahara was also lead. And after a war, Spain finished it instead of doing the right thing, which is a decolonization operation supervised by United Nations. They have opted for illegal and shameful manner to end their existence in Western Sahara through what we call Madrid Tripartite Agreement, where they have divided the territory between themselves, Morocco and Mauritania. That Morocco will have the north, Mauritania will have the south, Spain will conserve fishery rights of the coast of Western Sahara. That agreement led to a war of 16 years that Mauritania left and recognized the Saharaui Republic and we have good relations with them. Morocco instead invaded the Mauritanian part and the northern war continued till 91, where United Nations get involved to try to find a solution that never found. Despite hundreds of resolutions, United Nations never implemented one of them.
And now the ceasefire was agreed in 1991. The situation was kept in low level in a way, but in 2020 the ceasefire was broken. What drove to that situation?
Morocco wanted to open a road that links our occupied territory to Mauritania. To open that road, you have to do a bridge in the berm. And that was a violation to the ceasefire agreement that we had with them and with the United Nations. But they disregard those agreements. They didn't respect military agreement number 1, military agreement number 2, and the resolution of Security Council regarding the United Nations issue. So they sent their army in what they call operation by army, which ended the ceasefire. Then they occupied more land, about 40 square kilometers. They built a new berms and they sent their troops beyond the demarcation line. Of course, that was a death kiss for the ceasefire and for the agreement we had with them and with the United Nations.
Because of this situation, the Polisario Front, who is the representative of the Saharaui Republic, stated that they will actually start that they will start preparations for war. What has this meant in these last 2 years?
Well, the ceasefire was hanging up there. The ceasefire was meant to be psychological and political preparation for the holding of the referendum. It was a package. You can't take from the package the ceasefire and leave the referendum. It was intimately linked we do a ceasefire, freedom of the political prisoners, repatriation of refugees, the electoral campaign, then the referendum. Morocco got the ceasefire and they doesn't want to do the other elements of the package. So out of our determination to look for a peaceful solution, we respected this ceasefire for 30 years. But ceasefire was, the essence of the ceasefire was thrown away when Morocco have its fault fast, its turnaround position, and changed his heart about all the United Nations peace plan in Western Sahara.
Mm-hmm. So on the referendum, I mean, it's been scheduled to happen since 1991. The Saharaui Republic is the largest non-self-governing territory that has not had its opportunity for self-determination. What hopes do you see for the referendum in the future while this ceasefire is being breached, and then further on from that, say, if this dispute can be resolved, there's obviously a lot of ongoing issues with who would actually be able to vote in the referendum. So
there are two elements around the referendum.
Exactly.
There is a political will that is not there. There is no political will, neither in Morocco nor in his allies, Western allies. They want Morocco to rule the country illegally, in total disregard of the sentiment of the population. That's the main and the only serious obstacle in front of the referendum, which is the lack of the political will. Because Morocco is saying he doesn't want the referendum. But Morocco have refused the referendum 3 times before and have went back to accept it. Morocco in 1975, he said no referendum is possible, and le dossier est clos. The file is closed. After a war, he went running, King Hassan, to Nairobi, and he pledged to do a referendum because of the struggle of the Sahrawi people. Then when he delayed the resolution of the OAU in Nairobi in 1993, he said, no, there is no referendum. There is only a confirmative referendum. We went back again to war, and we obliged him to accept the referendum. And in his own mouth, he said in the General Assembly speech, and it's on YouTube, that I am ready now for a self-determination referendum. That's why we signed the ceasefire agreement, and MINURSO was deployed in the territory. 1 year because of Kuwait situation, terrorism in Algeria, also changed his heart about the referendum. We went back again, also pressurizing him, and Baker did convince him to do the referendum. That's why we signed Houston Agreement, which gave a date to the referendum. And when everything is ready for the referendum, the King Hassan disappeared. His son came and he said no referendum. Now he's saying, along the road with the war, we will oblige him to come back to the referendum, because there is no other way to solve the problem. This is international law. A non-self-governed territory should have the right to a decolonization process through the voting of the people to choose what they want. That's the self-determination. It's about people voting about what they want. Not a king who will decide who you are. It's not the king who will rule me and decide who I will be and what is my country going to be. Of course, that's totally unacceptable and outrageous in the 3rd millennium. That belongs to Europe history of 14th century or 15th century, where kings were owning people and lands and ice and skies and water and waters. That's not anymore the case.
I would like to ask you, because in this podcast we talk about geopolitics, so everything that is involved with the situation. I would like to start with the territory of Western Sahara, and what does it have? It's got fishing ponds that have been, as you were mentioning, they were in the Madrid Accords. They were given to Madrid in those accords. There's phosphates. What are the resources that the territory has to maintain itself, or that Morocco may like to have?
Problem of Western Sahara that it has a lot of resources, be it eolitic resources, fisheries, or the biggest stock of phosphate rocks and the best ones in the world. But also there is petrol, gas, gold, diamond, copper, iron, on our frontiers with Mauritania, the same island that Mauritania had. It's a very rich territory. For the bad luck, they have a very small population.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what attracts the greed of our Moroccan neighbor.
And in that sense, now going to the countries surrounding, what are the current relations? You were mentioning that with Mauritania after the agreement in 79, excuse me. They are good relations. With Algeria. Algeria hosts the largest refugee camp and the oldest in Africa of Saharaui population. How is your relation with the immediate neighbors?
We have good relation with all our neighbors except Morocco.
Mm-hmm.
And Morocco has bad relation with all the neighbors, including us. So it's the opposite. Saharaui Republic has a very friendly relation with our brothers Mauritanian, with our brothers Algerians, with the Canarian Islands. Very historically friendly relations. Only Morocco, who is invading our territory and occupying part of land and repressing the repression against our population. While Morocco has bad relation with every neighbor. Have you been living in a flat, you will have problems with the one upstairs and the one downstairs. But they have it from Spain, troubles with Spain, troubles with Algeria, totally no relation with Algeria, no relation with Mauritania, and of course a war with Saharaui Republic.
On Algeria, how do you see the relationship developing because of the potential, the new agreement with the EU for Algeria to supply large amounts of gas to the EU? Do you think that could be used for the benefit of the Western Saharan people for recognition, or do you think it could be used as a wedge against, like to drive Algeria further apart from the Western Sahara people?
Algeria have a history, very important history, during the War of Liberation against France. It was the bloodiest, most heroic, most impacting. And that War of Liberation have impacted Algerian politics and Algerian psyche and Algerian population. Every Algerian has someone who was killed by France during the Liberation War. So they feel very strongly about the national liberation and about independence, about self-determination. Actually, Resolution 1514 of the United Nations about decolonization was adopted 16th of December 1960 after Algerian demonstrations, the 10th of December in Algiers, when the Algerians revolted very strongly, and that attracted a big support from the international community, and the Resolution 1514 have been passed and adopted, which is, they call it a charter of decolonization. The position of Algeria is clear. It's a legal and moral position in favor of decolonization and self-determination of all the peoples. They have defended in Timor-Leste, they have defended in Namibia against South Africa, they have defended in Belize, in Latin America. So they are very consistent with their policy, which is also enshrined in their constitution and in the mind and hearts of their population.
We want to go a little bit, first we're going to start with the African continent. The Saharaui Arab Democratic Republic is a founding member of the African Union. And for example, Morocco wasn't in the African Union until 2017. What are your relations right now? You're ambassador in South Africa. What are the relations? What is the position right now of the SADR within the African Union? And what is the
Morocco has a very racist position towards Africa. Actually, King Hassan have insulted Africa several times, saying there are tam-tam conferences and failed the continent. They have left the African. They refused to sign the Charter of OAU in 1963 because they refused to recognize a very cardinal principle of AU and African Union, which is the respect of the inherited colonial frontiers at the independence. Then they have left the OAU in 1984. After 30 years, they tried to come back not out of their convention to play a role in the African Union, but they think from inside they can change the AU. So they came back with a very bad faith and a very ill-advised mentality to rule the African Union, one state that want to rule 55 countries. Today, despite their return to the African Union have adopted the resolution of Johannesburg about silencing the gun, where it asked for negotiations between the two member states, the Kingdom of Morocco and the Saharaui Republic, and to prepare a referendum of self-determination. Also, the Peace and Security Council have passed a resolution on the issue. I just came back 2 days ago from Lusaka of the Executive Council, where they confirmed an existing resolution that all countries must participate in the partnership conference with EU and with Japan, despite a very strong lobbying from Morocco to exclude some countries. So 5 years after the return of Morocco, the position of the African Union is pretty clear in favor of its own charter and its own founding values and principles.
So on that, do you see the African Union being the main vessel or arena which the Saharaui Republic could undertake the referendum?
I think today, if you see the setting from outside, you see the impasse and the non-movement of the issue. But when you take a closer look at the issue, you feel the germs of a solution are getting gathered. Today, the Sahrawi issue is present very strongly in the AU agenda. It's very present in the EU, European Union with African Union agenda. America having a problem with the position of Western Sahara. European Union having a problem. The gas is related to Western Sahara. The electricity, energy related to Western fishery. The cooperation with Morocco and the European Union is hanging in the sky waiting the ruling of the court. So Japan is its summit, which will be end next month in Tunis. It's also about Western Sahara. So all aspects, political, economic, commercial, energetic, security and defense is somehow related by way or another to how we solve the problem of Western Sahara. So in Morocco, in his way that he thinks he is avoiding the issue, he helped us to put it very high on the agenda. Yes.
In that matter, because as you were mentioning, the relations between the European Union and Morocco, the relations with the United States, there was this statement by former President Trump, a pro-Moroccan position. I would like to divide it in two. First, I would like to ask you about the position of the European Union in this sense. As far as I understand, this is left to the Spanish position, and it more or less follows, but then there's obviously troubles there because France also has a position in the beginning of, with this latest crisis of between Morocco and Spain. Actually, the crisis started before with Germany and Morocco. How do you see the presence or the involvement of the European Union first, and then of the United States? How do you see it?
Well, with the European Union is involved directly because of one of its members is the cause of this trouble, which is Spain. So Europe has a direct responsibility about what happened, and they can participate more actively in the solution if they want. Problem with Europe, that the position that is taken is always France's position, which is the one interested in Africa, and especially in North Africa. Spain has a very shameful position, especially President Pedro Sanchez. He chose personal deals he had with the king. He and his wife had with the king. He chose them from the position of the Spanish parliament, of the Spanish population, and the position of international legality. Pedro Sanchez shamelessly have endorsed Moroccan plan of autonomy, while European Union still supporting United Nations peace plan, including Germany, still supporting. Funny enough, France didn't follow yet the Spanish illegal and shameful position. But we have to remember, America position is ambiguous. Mm-hmm. They say they support United Nations. Biden and Blinken said repeatedly they support the United Nations peace process. But they don't want also to change the tweet of Trump. Mm-hmm. They are somehow having an ambiguous position. But you have to remember that in 1975, Morocco invaded Western Sahara with the total support of America and of Europe, and not only a pledge of support of autonomy from Spain, a signature that Western Sahara is Morocco. Mm-hmm. So for Morocco to make a big issue of a position of outsider players, it's pointless. Mm-hmm. Because that have been always there, a support of America to Morocco, have been always support from Spain to Morocco by arms, by money, by diplomatic backing. Always European Union have supported Morocco with money, with diplomatic backing, with arms, with ammunition. Did that help Morocco? Did that make Morocco win the game? It didn't. So Morocco, every time trying to do emballage, new backing, the support it has already had, and present it as a new element in the game. Why? It's not new. Morocco invaded our land with the total support of America and with Europe, and that did not help him. What will help Morocco is a support from the Sahrawis, and that's the key issue here.
Mm-hmm. I would like to ask you, because the SABR's brother, in its liberation movement, it is brother with many other movements in the world. I would like to ask you, how do you see these movements now going forward? With the seemingly new great power competition between East and West, and also with China. This is not just with Western Sahara, but it also can be the Kurdish topic, can be Palestine, can be...
What led to this bad situation of the world we live in is the double standards and the non-respect of international law. America and the West, who shout about Russian invasion to Ukraine, they did nothing about Moroccan invasion to Western Sahara. Mm-hmm. Spain cannot say they are supporting international legality in Ukraine, because if they are doing that, they would have supported in Western Sahara. Mm-hmm. America cannot say a word about military invasion of land, because they are supporting Moroccan invasion to my land. So they have to look for another reason to explain that position to me and to Africa. These double standards, this duplicity, this hypocrisy, it's leading humanity to destruction. It's leading humanity, making all the issues a game, a joke, destruction of everything humanity has built from 1945 after the Second War. They're making it a joke. They don't do anything about Moroccan invasion. They don't do anything about Israelis' destruction of the Palestinian land and invasion of their land grab. And now they want to make me believe they support Ukraine because of justice and division. No, come on. That's not serious. That's a joke.
Well, Your Excellency, I think you've given us, I don't know if you have any other question.
No, I think we covered everything here as well.
Thank you very much.
We have to tell you thank you very much. There's one part in our podcast where we like to ask our interviewees what has been their career development, to maybe give inspiration to prospect diplomats, prospect workers in international organizations. May we ask you, what drove you to be in the position you are today? You've also been the Minister for the Americas. You've been all around the world. What drove you to this situation? How vast your career was?
I'm doing this to free my country, to go back to my city that I left in 75, 50 years ago. I never went back home. So I'm engaging in the struggle of my people to free myself, to free my country, and to free my people from the occupation of our land.
And how was your career development?
I don't think it's a career, it's a struggle that me and all my compatriots are involved in, everyone with his way, everyone with his that he can contribute. It was my part to go and speak to the world, and it's my honor to do it. It was my pleasure to do it. And I will do everything that will help my people be free.
Well, on that, we're very thankful that you could come on with us here and talk about it and explain the...
Well, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, which I appreciate a lot.
It's been very informing, and yeah, we really appreciate it, and thanks for coming on the Geopolitical Pickle. And I think that's all we have for today.
Very much.
Shukran. Shukran.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Ambassador.
Thanks for tuning in to Geopolitical Pickle.
We hope you enjoyed the episode, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
In the meantime, follow us on Instagram for more behind-the-scenes content.
And subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast.
Thank you, and see you next week.